What does it mean to feel in love? And I'm not talking like infatuation and like teenage butterflies. I'm talking about the real, substantive, emotional warmth. That feeling of, if you're interested in something, you're excited about something, you want to tell them first. If you have spare time, you want to spend it with them. That feeling of just being drawn and wanting to be near and trusting them, maybe even at your lowest low, like they're the person that you go to. And it's less like desire. It's more like vulnerability, like the danger of being completely seen and completely known, and that being met with acceptance and love and warmth. That's love. And that's the love that can be sustained over time. That's love that can actually move out into the future, and it doesn't have to dwindle out. It's not like, that's not immature, that's not infatuation, that's like the substance of it. It's that trust, that warmth, that closeness. And I want to talk about how to maintain that. I want to talk about maybe how to recapture that. If you feel like maybe you're in a marriage right now where what I just described feels pretty far off. It feels too good to be true. I want to talk about it because that is possible, and we've seen it to be possible. And so like a lot of what I want to talk about today is actually the second part of marriage counseling, because the first part of marriage counseling is typically very centered on conflict resolution and how to have conflict in a way that builds trust and builds closeness and doesn't like erode intimacy. It's addressing things like resentments and wounds in the relationship, and that's good. That's kind of a whole nother video though. That's a whole domain in itself to discuss. What I want to talk about today is actually the second part. It's the part where we focus on kind of rebuilding after we've, exterminated the resentment, after we've fumigated the place. How do we actually remodel and rebuild something good that we want to live in? That's kind of the idea. So what we're going to be talking about today, in part, is actually Gottman's theory of bids. And Gottman's a marriage researcher. He's the marriage researcher. He's the guy who spent 40 years of his life with his wife in their lab, just studying and looking at relationships and trying to kind of understand what are the things that break down trust and break down intimacy, and what are the things that build trust and intimacy, right? And so tens of thousands of couples have come through his lab. He's researched, and he came with some pretty insightful conclusions that I'm going to be sharing just a piece of his research today around his theory of bids, because we're always trying to get each other's attention, usually about fairly mundane things. And it's, a lot of people think that it's kind of like the big gestures of affection. It's like the anniversaries and the birthdays and the the Valentine's Day gifts. Like that's what really fosters romance, but it's not. What he found was it was actually very mundane, everyday exchanges that made that either made the relationship or broke the intimacy that people were experiencing. So, for example, like let's say that you and I are out to dinner, and I have a bowl of pasta, and I'm like, you gotta try this pasta. Like, you gotta try it. This is just incredible. And you have a few different ways that you can respond to me. You could say something like, I don't like pasta. Why are you even asking me to try that? No, I'm gonna eat my own food. You eat your food, I'll eat my food. I'm not trying your pasta. That's an option. So that would be categorized as turning against. So someone bids for your attention, and then you turn against them harshly. That would be one option. And it doesn't even have to be that overt. Like you could just act that out, and it would be the same thing. So I'm like, hey, try a bite of the pasta, and you can go, ugh, and you grab the spoon, and great, you happy? So that's an option. That would be a way of almost trying to punish the person for getting your attention. Right? Or you try the bite and you talk about how terrible the pasta is, or how silly they are for choosing that on the menu, or how could you even like this? So you can punish someone for trying to get your attention. That's one option. Or you can kind of just be passive about it, not really quite punishing, not really quite harsh, but it's still not turning towards them. It's still not actually engaging with them. It's still fairly negative. And so it could be just like straight up ignoring them. And so you could be like, hey, try this pasta, and I'm just over here like, and I don't even acknowledge you. Or you could be like, try this pasta, and you're like, no, I'm fine. And you don't take an interest in anything. Or you can turn positively. You can turn towards the person who's trying to get your attention. I'm like, here, try this. And you're like, okay. And then you take a bite of it, and you're like, oh, interesting. And you can even say like, oh, not my thing. But you're not trying to discourage or be negative. You're actually taking an interest in why they find it interesting, and then giving them the satisfaction of sharing something positive with you. And we do this in all sorts of things. It could be sharing something funny you saw on the internet, wanting to show your partner a new TV show that you got into, wanting to, I don't know, you're just driving and you see like a deer on the side of the road. You're like, oh, look, a deer. And what you'll notice is that people have routines, people have habits about how they're reactive to their partners. And be like, stop bothering me. Don't see I'm doing something? Like, don't interrupt me. Or punishing them for like, oh, okay, yep, a deer, good. Watch the road. Or turning towards and just acknowledging the deer, like, oh, cool. So there's these positive moments or these negative moments that are littered in our relationship. And what Gottman found was that for every negative reaction, you have to have at least 5 positive reactions just to keep an equilibrium. It's kind of a wake-up call, isn't it? I know it was for me. It's like, if you're not responding positively to their bits of attention 5 times more than you're responding negatively, what they found was that the partner will actually stop trying to get your attention. And maybe you feel that way about your partner. Maybe it's like you don't share with them the interesting thing you saw online, the thing that you see out the window. You don't ask your partner to try, this food that's so delicious because you know the response he'll get. They'll turn against you or they'll turn away, and it's not worth it. And that's where they've seen emotional warmth completely decline, is in the mundane, everyday things. More often than not, it's not like the big, giant fight. It's not the major wounds. It's the everyday moments where people choose to either engage or turn away from each other. So watch how you're reactive. It has a huge impact on the quality of your relationship. And here's maybe another thing to think about. It's not just the reactivity, but the proactivity in your relationship. Are you still trying to get to know your partner? And this might sound kind of weird for some of us because we've been dating or married to our partner for a while. I don't know, some of you might have been together for 25, 30, 50 years. Who knows? But what happens, and this is what a lot of people don't maybe know just intuitively, is it's not necessarily that we know our partner super well when we're with them for a long time. It could be that we're used to the same routes that we take in navigating our partner. And so, for example, like when I drive to work, I'm pointing to the road. that's to my right here. I take 3 turns to get to work. Like I drive from the street where my house is on up to the interstate. I get on the interstate, and then I get off the interstate, and then I just drive straight to get to my job. So super easy. I could do it in my sleep. But however, if you told me, Matthias, don't use the interstate to get to and from work, you have to use a different route, I might be screwed because I don't know if I could get home. It might take me like an hour because I don't know. I know how to get to work. I do. And I know where my house is. I do. But if you told me to get there on an unfamiliar route, I might have a hard time with it. And maybe that's the case for you. Maybe if someone just dropped you in your city and said, don't use any road you've ever used before and get home, you might have a hard time with it. And what we do in couples counseling is I ask couples to do that very same thing with their relationships. I'm like, navigate your partner in ways you haven't before. Navigate a date. Ask them questions you haven't asked them before. And see if you know them as well as you think you do. And there's a tool for this. So if you have your phone with you, I'll show you an app that I use for this. This is great. So this is called the Gottman Card Decks app. So they put together just a bunch of questions and different activities so that you can kind of get to know your partner in new and interesting ways. And it makes it really easy and simple because it's not obvious all the time how to navigate our partner in new ways. And so that kind of, gave us some head starts. So the Love Map one, this is the first one, top left. This is really cool. This is actually kind of a game that you can play with your partner, maybe over a date or something, where you can just quiz them on how well you know each other. And so each person kind of goes through and scrolls through different ones, and then, you ask your partner, so this one here, what was one of your partner's best childhood experiences? And so you'd ask them, what are my best childhood experiences? And then your partner has to think how well they know you. And it's like, well, okay, your best childhood experiences were this, and the other thing. And then what's cool is as you kind of go through the deck, you'll find that there's different stuff that you didn't know about your partner. And then you inform each other about things that are important to you, or things about your past, or opinions, or desires that you have that you didn't know. And so this isn't like a point system. Like, you're not trying to win. Don't get competitive with it. You're actually trying to look for places that you don't know or have full understandings about your partner. So this is cool. So, and they update this all the time with different questions. So this is like a fun game to play on a date or something. Open-ended questions. This is a cool deck that, if you want to have like a 20-30 minute conversation of some real substance, like, this is a great one to go into, because you can really find some interesting things that, I don't know, you didn't know about your partner. And so this is a great one as well. As you kind of go through, watch these salsa decks, because these are like homework assignments for intimacy and closeness and affection, and they can get real spicy, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, have fun with that. There's a lot of really cool things in there. You want to be able to have hold on. Okay, that's better. You want to navigate your partner intentionally. That's the point. You want to actually proactively be trying to get to know your partner and responding positively, taking interest in things that they're interested in, and not even necessarily for the sake because maybe you're not interested in what your partner's interested in. Maybe you don't like barbecue, or like for me, like some of my hobbies right now are like pottery and barbecue, and I like to make like really clear cocktail ice, for making different drinks and stuff. I want it to look like glass, and so I spend a lot of time like crafting and carving my ice, and Paige has no interest in ice, so but she takes an interest and is excited because, when I make her a cocktail, and then I'm really excited to present it to her with like this really, this ice that I spent hours making in the fridge. It feels exciting to share with her, and I don't even need her to be as excited about it as I am, but just responding positively to something that I put a lot of time into really creates emotional warmth. It makes me fall in love with her when she takes an interest in the things that I know that she's not really into, but when she tastes my brisket, and she doesn't really like brisket all that much, but I spent 12 hours making it, and so she'll eat it and she'll like, wow, it's so tender, and I know that it's not her favorite, but she does that for me because she loves me. And I do that for her in other ways too. And having that intentionality of taking an interest in what your partner finds interesting, having an intentionality over exploring things in your partner, is what's going to really bring love back into your relationship. That's what makes you fall in love with someone, is when you feel seen and known, loved and accepted in the small things. Not just in the big fights, not just in the core values, in the everyday mundane things. So I want to challenge you with something. Today, I want you to think, maybe as you're watching this video, maybe you're watching this in the evening, maybe you're watching this before you go to work, whatever. The next time you get a chance to sit with your partner, I want you to think about a few questions that you want to ask them to explore them in ways that you haven't explored before. Like a good one that I just asked Paige last night was, what's your favorite item of clothing? Like, what stuff are you really enjoying right now? How do you feel like your fashion sense has changed from even just a couple years ago? What do you think you're interested in now that was different? And we had a whole conversation for like an hour about clothing, and she's pregnant right now, so she was just talking about maternity clothes and how frustrating it is to find, clothes that she really enjoys, seeing herself in. And that actually led to a conversation that now I actually know how to love her and what kind of gifts or just what kind of priorities to push for. It helps me see her in new and interesting ways. And it was just a mundane conversation over like, what's your favorite shirt right now? And that has roots in very actually deep parts of your relationship and how they're experiencing this season of life. Press in. Press into knowing your partner in ways that you didn't know them before. Respond positively. Respond with affection. Take an interest in what your partner's interested in. Maybe not even for the sake of the thing itself, but for the sake of your partner. Because you love them. So those are my thoughts for today. I hope you have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.